From Relay FM, this is Connected, episode 20. This show is brought to you by lynda.com, where you can instantly stream thousands of courses created by industry experts for a 10-day free trial. Visit lynda.com/connected. Squarespace, start here, go anywhere, and Sketchbuddy TV, the fun, fast drawing and guessing game for Apple TV. My name is Myke Hurley, and I'm joined today by Mr. Stephen Hackett. Hello, Stephen Hackett.
Hello, Michael Hurley.
And this is it. It's just the two of us today. Hi, how you doing?
I miss Federico, but this is kind of like old times.
It is kind of like old times. Many people listening to this show may not know, but once, many moon ago, me and Stephen, we had our own little technology show that we did together. It was just the two of us, before the prompt, even.
Pre-prompt.
Pre-prompt.
Yeah, pre-prompt. So I have to say, we have two of the most amazing pieces of follow-up. And the third one is special. I don't mean to downplay it, but some very important follow-up, Michael.
Yeah.
Very important. Mm-hmm. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Twitter clients. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Do you know what? I remember it. I remember it so well. It's like it's all coming back to me now.
What are you getting me for Christmas, Myke?
A Twitter client.
Really?
Yeah, I've been developing Teachy Tweet for a few months now. I'm happy to say that Swift? I really like it. I am using
Which
Swift.
Language?
Yep. So it runs nice and fast for you. Yep.
That's really
you open
your summary of Swift. It runs nice and fast.
Runs nice
and fast. So hang on, before we talk about the real topic, if there was a Teachy Twitter app, I think that you would open the app and it's a grid and there's a picture of pasta, there's a picture of espresso, there's a picture of an iPad, and then there's a picture of a question mark. And you tap the buttons and a tweet goes out. It's pre-populated. A tweet goes out about one of those items. So if you hit the iPad, something about working on the iPad, pasta, or espresso. But if you hit the question mark, it searches Giphy at randomly pulling from the dictionary and posts that. And I frankly think that podcasting is over and we should develop this app full time.
Yeah, I don't know why we're still waiting around here. Somebody's made DG tweets.
It's real. You can find it in the App Store. There's a link to our show notes. And I have to say, Myke, I've been testing this app for a couple of weeks now. And frankly, I've uninstalled every other app on my phone. It's literally just this.
So this is incredible. So this was made by really close friend of the show now, Daniel Breslin.
Yeah, he's family of the show.
Within 24 hours of that show coming out, he had like an alpha version that he sent us a test flight invite for.
Yeah.
And then we kind of gave some simple like feedback, and then I know that you helped out craft some of the tweets, and now it's here. So basically, it's an app, and you can find it in the show notes, which if you go to relay.fm/connected/20, you will find the show notes. And you are presented with a few choices, some emoji choices, and you select from them, and it will randomly give you, tweets that you can send out in the style of Federico Fetici. It's all hashtagged and everything. It's incredible. It's so funny. It's just great. It's a great example of what we love about you guys. And Danny, thank you so much for bringing my app to life. My code name is Danny, and I built this app as I explained.
That's right. That's right. Well, if Danny were real and if Danny were to get in touch, I would definitely mail Danny a Fetici seal of approval.
Right, we can do that. Or actually, I think he's in the UK, so maybe I should just do that.
Yeah, maybe you should just. We workflows, behind the scenes stuff. People don't even know how the sausage is made. Speaking of that, we also have a movie poster. If you remember last week, our movie Reconnected, written by Federico Fetici, starring Bradley Cooper, Benedict Cumberbatch, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, is definitely underway. It's being written right now. It'll be in pre-production very soon. But we have our movie poster, which you can see on Twitter. And I have to say, seeing the three of us together like this really gets me excited about our art. Doesn't it you?
I am very yes. I was very happy to see this. I've tried to tell many people in my life this week about this movie. A lot of people aren't interested.
Like people like on the subway, you're like, hey, I'm going to be in a movie with Bradley Cooper.
Well, no, I'm not going to be in the movie. He's playing you, and I'm being played by Benedict Cumberbatch. Many people that I have shown this picture to, this was originally including myself, didn't even know that he was ever in a movie where he had a beard like that.
Is it really my favorite part of it is how he looks crazy with that beard and like looking off into space.
My beard is kind of that length right now. It's grown really quickly, which is great fun for everyone, especially me.
Wow. So there's that, and I think that it's maybe the best thing that's ever happened to Hollywood, really, in the history of Hollywood. The best thing.
It's gonna save the movie industry. Sony destroyed it, and we're gonna fix it.
Yeah, so you might read about this in those Sony leaked documents.
Yep.
Hopefully you won't.
Yep.
Jimmy Bosse on Twitter.
I think you're giving him a bit more flair.
Well, I mean, he's got a beard, he's got glasses, he needs a little flair. He's got a little flair to him. He has giraffes as his profile picture. It's awesome. He has loaded our show notes in the PS3 browser. Myke, do you own a PS3?
No, I own a PS4.
PS4. I didn't know if you had a PS3. I assumed the browser is terrible, but you can zoom. So he has it appears to be on his television in his living room. There's like kid stuff around, and there's a picture of the three of us for all of his family to enjoy. We are partaking in his home life now with his family, and I think that's really sweet. PS3. I do have to say, Myke, can we have a little follow-up confession?
Yeah.
I believe that I promised screenshots running in Next Step, and I failed.
Why did you fail? Do you not know how to use computers?
I forgot until just now. Maybe I can do it. Maybe I can do it during the show.
How would you do that in some sort of virtual machine?
Yes. Let's see if I have it on here. I do. I have Next Step 3.3. I guess that might be OpenStep. Let's see. Okay. I'll do this. We can carry on with the show. If I get screenshots during the show, we will real-time follow up to our follow-up.
I don't know how comfortable I am with you doing that whilst we record. I feel like something could go horribly wrong.
What do you mean?
I don't know. Well, one, I feel like I could lose you into some sort of like fugue state.
Running Next Step?
Yeah, just because you'll be like, you'll feel at home and you'll never want to leave. And then the podcast will have to stop because like if it's like a time travel movie or something, because you will end up going so far back into the past that podcasting doesn't even exist, and then the show will end.
I think you might be overreacting.
Well, look, it is my job in this business to just think about the possible problems, and then you fix them.
That does seem to be our scenario. Myke, why don't you tell us about our friends at Lynda?
It's time to kickstart your new year. It's time to challenge yourself to learn something new, and you should be doing this with a free trial, a free 10-day trial to lynda.com. Lynda.com is used happily by millions of people around the world and has over 3,000 courses on topics like web development, photography, visual design, and business, as well as software training like Excel and Photoshop. All of their courses are taught by experts, and new courses are being added to the site every single week. Whether you want to set new financial goals, invest some new time into a brand new hobby, maybe you want to help on finding a new job or improving or honing your own skill sets, you should be doing that in 2015, and lynda.com has something for everyone, no matter what they're trying to get out of this new year that's coming up. With lynda.com, you'll get unlimited access to every single course when you sign up. This includes access to view tutorials on tablets and smartphones as well with their iOS and Android apps, and you'll get access to every single new course as it's being added. It's just one flat fee, and you get access to everything. Lynda.com have highlighted a few courses that they think that you'd be interested in. So for listeners of this show, they were thinking about what do they think listeners of Connected will like. So what about getting started in audio and music production? Maybe you want to create your own podcast. They have some great courses there on stuff like Logic and things like that. What about the documentaries Helvetica, Objectified, and Urbanized, which is the trilogy of documentaries by Gary Hustwit. I've seen Helvetica and liked it a lot. They're all available on lynda.com as well. Maybe you want to learn a bit about design. I've seen some great courses on Illustrator and Photoshop, and they'll also teach you drawing skills and stuff like that if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in. They have this great new innovative course which is called their Code Workshop. And in that, you'll be able to go in and you can see, basically, they'll have a code problem, and then a bunch of different people will present different answers in different methods, so you can kind of see the thinking of a bunch of different people. It's a really interesting way of kind of looking at different development challenges and stuff like that, which is, I saw that and I thought that was pretty interesting. And I can imagine for people that are trying to learn this type of stuff, it's cool because you can see different people's different ways of thinking. They have iOS app development and essential Swift training as well. Just some really cool stuff. You should be going and checking out lynda.com because they have all of this stuff available to you. You can get it right now, and you can sign up for a free 10-day trial by going to lynda.com/connected. So go ahead. I challenge you to learn something new in 2015. Thank you so much to lynda.com for supporting this show and all of Relay FM. That's lynda.com/connected.
So we thought we would spend today, which is the last episode of 2014, looking back at the year, but not just at Apple, but kind of looking at some of the big tech stories of the year. And I don't think we're going to go back through them like in detail, but kind of see like what stuck, like has remained important, what sort of didn't just get washed away, but what has remained for 2014. And shockingly, we found stories for every month of the year, which was a little bit. Actually, it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be.
So there was an interesting way that I cheated a little bit on this. So
share your workflow.
Yeah, I would like to share my workflow. When we were putting these documents together, we were like looking through some stuff. Things were coming to mind. I was looking at some other roundups as well and picking out some things that I thought were interesting. And then there were a couple of months that were empty. So I went to the show notes of the show and just looked at the descriptions. I was like, oh, yeah, that happened.
Wow.
That's
good.
There was a quiet window for a couple of months, but I don't know what that was about.
I mean, every year there's,
As in, there was no show.
Oh, interesting.
We're going to get to that, though.
Oh.
So, yeah, I thought we're going to go through month by month, and we're going to pick out a couple of the stories that we find interesting and maybe talk about if they still mean the same thing, as we thought, or if they've basically just gone away.
I like this plan a lot. So let's start in the beginning with January. CES coming up. Some CES stuff last year happened. For me at least, I don't know how you feel, Myke, but like I just get really tired during CES. Like, I follow The Verge and Engadget, and like they'll have 400 posts a day about some crazy like TV that's 3D and curved, and like I don't care about those things.
Yeah.
So I personally find CES very tiring, but there's always a few things here and there that sort of come out, and I think one of the things that is obviously still making an impact is the Pebble Steel, which was announced at CES last year, which you are wearing on your wrist right now.
Yep.
Which is pretty cool.
As soon as I saw it, I knew I wanted it because I was always interested in a Pebble, but I didn't like the way the plastic ones looked. But the steel one, I liked the view of it. It had like this wasn't exclusive to the Pebble Steel, but it came with like the second version of Pebble's software. So I decided to go for it. And plus, they were doing a deal. I can't remember how much it was, but I think it was free, like expedited shipping, and there was a little bit of money off. I think something like that when they first announced it if you pre-ordered. So I pre-ordered, I think, like the day it was announced, and I maybe got it in February, maybe something like that, and I've worn it every day except for my brief stint with the OGG watch. But I continue to love it, and it's one of the best tech purchases that I've made this year for me because it's really improved the way that I use these sort of connected devices in my life.
Connected devices?
Mm-hmm.
Another one in January, I think happened right after CES, was Google announced that they bought Nest for $3.2 billion, which is a big price tag. But as we come like further throughout 2014, like really not all that much money. Like remember when Facebook bought Instagram for $1 billion, and now people measure like acquisitions and how many Instagrams it is.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of blowback, especially from like, I hate to say this, but from the Apple community, that Google was going to be doing creepy things. Like people were tweeting they were going to take Nests off their wall, which is ridiculous. Like I own a Nest. Everything is opt-in with Google. Like you don't have to send stuff to them. They've done really very little in terms of bringing Nest closer in line with Google stuff. I think there's some Google Now integration now, but again, that's opt-in. But clearly a really big announcement for like the quote Internet of Things of, hey, like these internet connected devices, but now sold by a giant company, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I find interesting about this is that it's been pretty much a year, and Nest do seem still to be pretty separate.
They do, and one thing that's a little surprising a year later is that they haven't had much in the way of new announcements. I know the thermostat got a pretty nice software update. Mine just got it a couple weeks ago. And they've got the smoke alarm, but I believe the smoke alarm predated the Google acquisition, I think. Maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But I don't know what I was expecting, but it seems to have been kind of quiet on that front since then. And so I don't know if they have, new hardware coming. And hardware takes a long time. I think part of this is that I forget that the Nest took a long time to develop because hardware is difficult. But I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. And I think with Google backing them, I think the sky's the limit on what Tony Fadell and his team can create.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting things as well, because it's like, what do you make? Like, at some point, you just need to iterate what you've got and then think of other things. Like, they don't need to have, 20 different products, like, just the ones that make sense and have them connect up in a nice way. There's definitely scope for growth, and that's probably, one of the main reasons I would expect that they accepted the Google deal, is it gave them, facilities, and resources, you wouldn't believe, to go out and do this stuff. I expect that they are probably in product development mode, in a heavy way right now, because there's so many things the company now doesn't need to worry about because they've got Google looking after them instead.
Right.
And
I do think the overall fervor has died down from the Apple crowd. I don't know if anyone actually took them off their walls. I hope not. I think that's a really childish reaction, but like you said, I think they're in good shape. But it's kind of funny. I didn't really put these two together until we did this document. So they bought Nest for $3.2 billion in early January, and the end of January they sold Motorola to Lenovo for $2.91 billion.
Yeah, this was such an interesting story because it proved what so many people thought was the point in the first place. Google originally bought Motorola as a defensive strategy when they needed some patents, right? Because they were going into a lawsuit with Apple. They heavily overpaid because they did it in a rush, and then they sold them for just basically a hair under what they paid for them in the first instance.
Yeah, which is a little embarrassing.
What a great deal for Lenovo, though.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no. Do you know what? I'm totally wrong. So I have to correct myself. They paid $12.5 billion for them in 2012, and then sold them for $2 billion in January 2014. That is, what a deal for Lenovo. What an incredible deal that they had.
Yeah,
it's just so sad as well because Motorola were doing such interesting stuff.
But no. Not
at
least in the smartphone arena.
Well, they were. Their Android phones were awesome.
Occasionally they had an awesome one. Like the original Droid was great. I owned one for a long time, but then they just got in bed with Verizon and made the Drodo, the Drodo,
the Droto. Everybody remembers that phone.
It's a flightless Android phone.
I'm talking about the stuff they did with Google, the G and the X.
Yeah, and
like, they were really interesting phones.
Sure, I own a Moto G. The Moto X is great, and I think if I were to buy an Android phone today, I'd buy the Moto X. But I think this story doesn't exist in a vacuum. None of these do, and this is like Motorola's decline. I think before the G and the X had a lot to do with Verizon. That they were making phones only for Verizon in the States. They were very aggressive in their marketing, but not in a good way. And Samsung came in and just ate their lunch. I mean, for a long time, the original Droid was like the Android phone to buy, but then Samsung just flooded the market, and Motorola's penetration never really made it past Verizon. And so for Lenovo to come in, and now they're doing the G and the X have both been updated. They both look really good. I think the X especially looks amazing for coming from a company that's not Apple. Like I really think it is one of the Android phones to buy. But I think it's more interesting from the Lenovo perspective. They bought ThinkPad business forever ago from IBM. Lenovo has been very successful in the PC market, much more so than some of these other guys. And they're, I think Lenovo is slowly making a play to be a real contender. But like everyone else, they don't control any of their own software. So I'm curious what Lenovo is going to do with Motorola. They're going to continue, so far they've run basically stock Android plus a few special features. But are they going to look at developing something else that can own the whole stack?
I genuinely think that in 5 years' time, we'll look back and say how Google could have won, like completely flat out could have won, if they would have continued to make or just made their own devices. I really do think the fact that they do not make their own Android devices, which take advantage of everything that they try and make from a software side, and really push the Nexus platform into being something that is its own brand, like what Microsoft is about to start doing with the Lumia brand.
Right, but Google was in the same. Yeah, but Google is in the same boat Microsoft, especially was in, maybe before 5 or 6 years ago. Where like if Google were to step in and say, "Hey, we're going to make an Android phone," and people feared this when they did it, like Google can't really like make Samsung angry because Google needs Samsung to run Android on its phones.
I don't think it's the same, and the reason I don't think it's the same is because Google's revenue does not come from licensing of the software. Samsung now needs Google more than Google needs Samsung. Because the phones are already out there, so the market share's there, right? People have got the phones are out there. Samsung need to be able to continue to sell new Galaxy phones, so they can't move away from Android now. So they will continue to do that. They are locked in a way that potentially Windows OEMs won't. And I genuinely think that Google should be making their own phones. I think it would be a lot better for them if they were able to do that. Like Google should have bought Nokia. And Nokia should have made Android phones, like for them. They really missed out in letting Microsoft get to them first. I think that it is there are parallels, there are lines to draw between them, but there are just enough nuanced differences where I think that it's going to make a big difference as over the next few years. The market's always going to be there, but they could be completely dominant, completely.
Yeah, and I can't help but wonder from Google's perspective how they view that scenario. Like, do they view it that it's okay that like Samsung takes Android and just does crazy things with it? Or, clearly they are to a degree because it continues to happen, and they've made pushes with Lollipop and some other things to incentivize OEMs to stay closer to stock. But it's definitely an odd position, and I think your point about the licensing fee is really good, and clearly not exactly the same scenario, but it's weird, right? Like when you make a product sort of for your competitors in a way. Like this is a really strange. It's like Samsung and Apple, right? Like Samsung and Apple are suing each other into oblivion in court, but Samsung makes a ton of components for Apple's devices. Like, it's sort of weird, but then you have to remember these corporations are huge, and like the part of Samsung that like makes like chips and parts is different from the part of Samsung that's like selling phones in a Sprint store. So anyways,
that was January.
That was January. What's next on the calendar?
So after January comes a little month called February, and it's a little month because it's shorter than all the other months, Stephen. I don't know if you know that, but sometimes every 4 years it gets an extra day.
It's like a little bonus. Did you know anyone who was born on a leap day?
No, I do not know anybody who's born on a leap day.
I grew up with a girl, we went to school together, who was born on a leap day. And so the joke was that she was like, I don't know, if we were 16, that she was really 4. I think she probably got tired of that joke.
Yeah, probably.
But it's weird.
It is weird.
So Microsoft has some news in February.
Huge news.
Huge news.
Satya Nadella became the CEO in February. When did Ballmer leave? It was in 2014, wasn't it?
Well, they announced it, and then the takeover felt really quick. Like
it felt like a matter of weeks that there was like a search, you know?
Yeah, so maybe we can find that. Kyle says August 2013. That seems too far back. Anyways, so this guy Nadella was at Microsoft. He was in the part of the company that dealt with cloud services. You know, not from like the consumer or enterprise like software side, but you know, cloud enterprise solution type stuff. And I, for one, I don't know how you feel. I guess we're getting ready to hear. I really like him. I think it's a great move for Microsoft, to hire from within. If you're going to do that, you can't pick somebody from Office or Windows because those products are not the whole story of Microsoft's future. I think they still have a part of Microsoft's future, but Microsoft has to become more well-rounded with things like Azure services for it to survive in the 21st century. And that's where this guy comes from. It's his bread and butter. And so to put that at the CEO level is real smart.
I am maybe more excited about what Microsoft could do in the next few years than maybe any other tech company, because they are uniquely positioned right now to do some crazy stuff, right? Because no one's really expecting them to do anything that all of the other tech companies are doing. Nobody's expecting Microsoft to have a great phone, right? No one's expecting that, but everyone's expecting it of Google and Apple every year. So Nadella can kind of do anything because their expectations are continue to have Office and Windows. And that's just going to happen, right? Because they don't even really need to innovate. Like, people are still going to buy it. What they've proven is if they innovate too much, people won't buy it, right? So they can kind of coast on that and do some new things. And clearly the company is like evolving and developing and changing, because you've got like all the Dropbox stuff is crazy to me, but in the best possible way, right? So like the fact that you can you don't need to have an Office 365 account to use their apps anymore. You can just use Dropbox, and they're like heavily integrating Dropbox into Office. Like that makes no sense because they have their own product. They have OneDrive, but what they're showing is we shouldn't, and it's the way everybody feels it should be, we shouldn't push people towards a product. Just let them into our platform however they want to get into it. Like it's just,
right.
It's the way that like Nadella to me feels like an average nerd who thinks about things in average nerd ways rather than a CEO of a company. And maybe, you know, I'm sure that's all, like not all, but to a point it's a facade, right? It's good business, but yeah, I'm very it's just I'm very interested in him, and I'm very interested in what they're going to do next.
Yeah, and they did announce his retirement August of 2013. There's a All Things D link in the show notes.
It felt quick though, but
yeah, it did. And I think one thing that's so exciting about this guy is that Ballmer was like the last man standing of the Mac and PC wars. Like Jobs is gone, Gates is more or less out of the picture, though he's kind of back now on the board. But like the age of like 80s and 90s fighting for the desktop, Ballmer was the veteran of that, and he carried that baggage into the 21st century. I really think that's why he saw issues like Office not being on iOS for a really long time. Like I can't help but think that part of that is at Ballmer's feet. And so to see that generation of leadership go into the sunset and to see somebody new who, didn't come up like railing against Apple, but, came up and Apple was just a known quantity, I think is a really like key difference. And I think one that like does free them up to do things. Microsoft doesn't have to always have an eye cut towards Apple anymore. They can fight with both hands. They don't have to have one tied behind their back. I'm really speaking in a lot of metaphors today, Michael, but it's because I'm excited.
If, like to a lesser extent, like saying what you did then about like being encumbered by the old wars, it's kind of a little bit like what Apple becomes at WWDC, right? So Jobs and his like restriction on things and the way he needs to think about things went away, and then a bunch of Android-like features comes to iOS.
Yeah,
like there's a parallel. I mean, I always feel like in these conversations it has to be noted that Microsoft's most profitable era was under the Marvel leadership. Like, it has to be noted because it's true. And everybody says, Mike failing Microsoft, but they were making more money with him than they did at any other point. But it's the irrelevance that's the problem.
Right. And the irrelevance not only in like the consumer space, but like what's terrifying to Microsoft is growing irrelevance in small and medium business. Like, Mike, you and I have a small business. Like, I work for a small business as my day job. Like, we don't use anything in Microsoft. Well, you and I use Skype, but like
Google dominates.
We're not dependent on them like we would have been had we started our business in 1993.
Yeah, Google definitely dominates our small business services, without a shadow of a doubt. Like, we use them for Google Apps, and we use Google Docs more than anything else. Like, if you think like so many of the things that Microsoft used to do in the business, we use Google instead. Like, we don't use Exchange and we don't use Office.
Right.
They're kind of at the key business points, and we just don't touch them ever. Sometimes I do have to use Office because people send me weird documents, but that's it.
What is this .doc?
I don't even know what to do with it. Man, Office for the Mac is so bad. I know that they're going to be bringing out like the Metro one, and I cannot wait for that because it's so many parts of it are not Retina. It's just ridiculous.
Before we move on to Facebook and WhatsApp, can I share with you something?
Yes.
Just between me and you.
There's nobody listening, so
that's factually untrue. So I liked Microsoft Entourage in college. Every student had an Exchange account, and it was great because I really liked like mail, calendar, contacts all being in one app, and I really want that. Like, I want Outlook for the Mac to be good and be able to hook it up with an iCloud or Gmail account and like have everything in one application. But I'm not getting my hopes up because Office on the Mac hasn't been good since like Word 5. Like, past then, like Office 97, 98 on the Mac, X 2004, whatever it is now, all of them bad. But I want it to be good.
I always think it's funny when you hear people say about, how great that team inside Microsoft, they're like a real Apple team, they're really focused. Like, have you used Office on a Retina machine?
Yeah.
If they are focused, they're focused on the wrong things because that is like a wasteland. It's horrible. Anyway.
Yeah. Facebook buys WhatsApp for 16 Instagrams.
It's maybe the most ridiculous news of the year.
Yeah, it's one...
19.
Yeah.
19. It's in the document incorrectly. 19 billion. I think...
19 billion.
$19 billion. It wasn't 16 of it in cash and 3 in stock, something like that?
Yeah, that's what we'll go with.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit that I didn't understand this at the time. Because I think at least this is like the problem with the internet is that it's too big, and I don't use WhatsApp. I barely use Facebook. And so for me to like understand what this means is difficult, but $19 billion is a big number. And this BBC article in the show notes says WhatsApp at the time had 450 million monthly users, which is insane. That's giant, what the kids call ginormous.
That's still not worth it though. Like, in my eyes, like, if you look at some of the other acquisitions we're going to talk about and some of the ones we already have spoken about, Facebook is not worth this amount of money, in my opinion. $16 billion is an insane amount of money for WhatsApp. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, it's a messaging app. Like, and the only reason Facebook bought it is to keep their Messenger app alive. Like, there's no other reason. They bought it because they didn't want WhatsApp to be the biggest. That's a real dumb thing to spend $16 billion on.
It's defensive. But you got to remember, too, Facebook is, like they went on a shopping spree. And it definitely was.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, because they keep the company separate, people are still using WhatsApp instead of Facebook.
But Facebook wins.
Yeah, but they don't win. Because the reason that they're being defensive is so people stay inside the Facebook bubble. But they're not in the Facebook bubble inside of WhatsApp. All Zuckerberg has done is like, for his pride? Like, if they're not going to bring those users in, if they're not going to make WhatsApp like Facebook WhatsApp, which they say they're not going to, then I don't understand the reason for it. Like, purely defensive doesn't make any sense. Because
it's like if we bought another podcast network, but then let them remain free for the idea of competition. I mean, it's like if you go, like if you pull off the side of the road somewhere and there's like 4 fast food restaurants, 3 of them are owned by the same company, right? Like 3 of them are getting your $5, even though it's the illusion of choice.
Well, that only works because in those scenarios you're making money. WhatsApp, it has a revenue model.
Yeah, they're selling soft tacos on the side of the interstate. Wait,
WhatsApp's revenue model
mix my metaphors.
Doesn't meet Facebook's revenue model. WhatsApp's revenue model is like a euro or $1 a year, right? That's what you pay WhatsApp.
Yes,
but that doesn't meet what Facebook's revenue model is, which is ads. And in the ideas where you've got 3 restaurants all owned by the same conglomerate, the money floats back up to the conglomerate. Everyone's happy, but the thing is like Facebook's business model comes from them being a place where you put all of your information into. And if they're not tapping into the WhatsApp info, which they say they're not going to, business left as it is, then it's kind of the only reason they bought it was just so Mark Zuckerberg didn't feel bad. Like, I
guess.
As time has gone on, I just can't see the real reason anymore. Like, a defensive move for what? Like, if everyone still leaves Messenger and goes to WhatsApp, Facebook are in no different a situation than if they would never would have bought them in the first place. But anyway, unless they just kill WhatsApp, which is probably what they will do.
Done. Unplug the server. It did kick off, though, what really, I think if you look at this year in technology in really broad strokes, I think there are a couple highlights. I think one of them is messaging. And this really sort of kicked that off. I think what Apple's doing with iMessage, it predates 2014, but 2014 added SMS relay, so you can send SMS messages sort of via the iMessage bridge. Facebook Messenger is now its own application. It's spun out of the main app. And you have things like Slack that have absolutely taken over for small businesses and teams for instant messaging like scenarios. I mean, it's really, private messaging really blew up in 2014, which seems so weird because like we all used AIM for a decade, and then now in the last year there have been 6 or 7 different things people have tried. But it's been a really exciting year for that little corner of things.
So we move on to March, and we can kind of blast through March, really. CarPlay launched,
yes,
and nothing's happened.
Yes.
So but that was kind of as expected, I think, because car technology is slow to move. But yeah, we have that. Office for iPad came out. This is kind of Satya's first big thing. But they've been sitting on this iPad app for who knows how long, and he put it out in the world.
Just sort of squirted it out.
Yep. Office for iPad. We got that. So, well done, buddy. Android Wear was announced. Google were the first company to kind of tip their hand and show what this type of thing could look like on a wearable device. Mm-hmm. I think that they had a good first outing. A lot of the devices leave something to be desired. Software is quite interesting. But I think Apple's owning of the stack will make them in a lot better position.
I think so too. And what were I guess it was like the LG G Watch, the Moto 360, like all those sort of first generation Android Wear products. And what is interesting about Android Wear as opposed to Android sort of proper, what we think of as Android, is Android Wear is very locked down. These companies have very, like, your LG G Watch and the Moto 360 operate the same way. They do the same things.
Yeah. All they can do is they can give you different watch faces.
Right.
You
Which
can
is
design
like
your own watch faces.
Like backing up to January or whenever it was. If Google had done that with Android itself, like how different would this playing field be? But they didn't, and they are exposing or like controlling Android Wear in a very particular way, which is new for Google, and I think the right move, especially for a device that, like, I don't want like Samsung running some like really cruddy software on my watch and it dying after 3 hours. So I understand why they're doing it. I think it's the smart move.
Yep. So we'll see how that goes. What else do we have? Facebook buys Oculus for $2 billion in more Facebook insanity.
Yes.
But this one I think makes more sense.
What? Why?
Makes more sense than WhatsApp, but still to pay twice this amount than Instagram doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's 2 Instagrams, and
because this
like,
is a bet on the future.
But
Mark
what?
Zuckerberg's reasoning for this made so much sense to me. It's like, I don't know if he said it actually, but people said it about him. Facebook missed out on mobile.
Yes, they did.
In a huge way. They weren't there for a long time.
They're still catching up.
They're still catching up. If VR is the next big thing, they are in with the company that's pioneering it.
And if it's not, it's going to be like the company that invested in Newtons. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
But the company that can drop $6 billion for defensive reasons, $2 billion is fine. Because you can imagine a Facebook product which is in virtual reality. Like, you can imagine that. And they could do a lot of things that are interesting with that technology.
Yeah,
that
I can see all my family's photos and terrible political views in 3D around me.
Exactly. You can have them thrown into your face by your family.
Basically how Christmas break was. I tried explaining I don't know if this happens to you, Michael Hurley of the United Kingdom, but no one in my family understands podcasting, let alone podcasting network, let alone making money at podcasting and like having a business partner who works full time on it. I think one of my uncles thinks I'm involved in like illegal Bitcoin mining. It's very like I really lost control of the narrative. Trying to explain what Relay was.
One of my grandparents thought that I was involved with Julian Assange at one point, so that's another thing.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's definitely what we're doing here. So we're up to April.
Yeah, you're going to need to help me with this one because I never really understood this in the first place.
So April marked the news of the Heartbleed on April 9th of this year. And, I mean, to boil Heartbleed down...
That sounds horrible.
Yes, to boil your heart down into like a little nugget, a little heart nugget. It was an issue with OpenSSL, just a security dingus, and it was really bad. And basically, almost every major web server or web service you have ever used had this issue because everyone relied on this technology, and it was not great. I mean, people were saying you need to change all your passwords. You need to,
set your computer on fire.
Yeah, which I mean, I definitely did not do. But at the same time, Heartbleed was a serious issue, and having this like critical vulnerability in SSL is scary because the world relies on things like this. But at the same time, like now, 8 months later, like I didn't see any side effects of this. I don't, I didn't have my email or my Dropbox account broken into.
It was just one of those times where basically I was just getting like multiple emails a day from every web service I've ever signed up for telling me they were okay.
Yeah, I really like it feels now at least more like a theoretical security breach than an actual one. I know there were real problems, but not being a web developer, like it didn't affect me day to day. But definitely at the very least, a good reminder for everyone to have unique, strong passwords and not to use the same thing everywhere. Because if you do and it's leaked at one place, it's leaked everywhere else. So, I think Yahoo was hit pretty hard. They had usernames and passwords leak according to CNET. Google had some issues. I mean, big name companies. This wasn't just little startups.
Also in April of this year, Mac Stories 4.0 launched the world, and we finally got the responsive design that we all wanted. I really love the way that Mac Stories looks now. Like, I really, really like it a lot. I think Federico and co did a great job. And I'm happy that it's there. I'm happy that his really long articles don't crash my web browser anymore. So that's always good, because that boy, he loves to write.
He does. It does look really good. I remember seeing the first versions of it. He was sharing screenshots with us, and I was like, "You have to do this!" Like,
yeah.
It looks great, and it's been a great year for being a Mac Stories reader. I think Federico is doing the best work he's ever done.
Definitely.
I don't just say that because he's not here. I would say it if he was here, but then he'd get embarrassed. So
we should stop talking about him because he didn't show up today. So.
Yeah, what's up with that guy?
I know, right? Let's talk about our second sponsor for this week, and that is Sketch Party TV, the fun, fast drawing and guessing game for Apple TV. Using AirPlay mirroring, you can turn your HD TV into a Wi-Fi drawing canvas and a high-tech party game. It's perfect for holiday parties and family get-togethers, special occasions, or impromptu game nights. Sketch Party TV is a drawing game for 2 teams of up to 8 players per team that plays a little bit like Pictionary. The standard gameplay settings give each player 5 words to draw in the space of 2 minutes, and each player gets 2 of these 2-minute turns. With 6 total players, a full game can be played in around half an hour. All you need is an Apple TV and an iPad or an iPhone. Games can be customized to be as long or brief as you like, with options for the number of words to draw per turn and a time limit to draw them in, with word lists of varying difficulty. There's even a word list for kids. There are thousands of words to draw in 7 different languages, including French, German, Spanish, English, and even Italian. Sketch Party TV is great for the classroom too, with a custom word list editor available as an in-app purchase. The custom word list editor is regularly an additional $1.99, but through to January 5th, the editor add-on is totally free, so you want to get in now and get it. Now, Stephen, you have been playing Sketch Party TV. What has been your opinion of the game?
It's been great. It's, when you hear things like AirPlay or like stream it to your Apple TV, you think of things like lag or it being problematic, but like, it was none of those things. Drawing on the iPhone, it being on the TV immediately, like the technology doesn't get in the way of having the fun. It only makes it more fun. And it's great. If you're one to have people over or have family game night or something, it's definitely something that should be in your collection.
It's critically acclaimed and enjoyed by people worldwide, including Stephen Hackett from Memphis, Tennessee. Sketch Party TV is available in the App Store or at sketchparty.tv/connected. So what's up next?
We are now in May, and May is the month in which Apple acquired Beats, this little company called Beats Music and Beats Electronics, for 3 Instagrams.
What a shock this was. Like, I was thinking about this when we were going back, and when the rumors came out, and everyone was like, nah, that'd be so crazy. You're crazy. But now look where we are. They've done it and haven't really seemed to do much. So
this is like CarPlay or like any of these other things. And again, like, stuff takes time, but how is it that the Beats streaming app is still like separate from iTunes Radio? They've done a little bit on the headphones front, like Beats is more prominently shown in Apple stores, but they left the brand separate and they haven't done anything with the software yet. Clearly, I think the further we get away from this, I think the more clear to me, at least, is that this was about staffing, of having the co-founders at Apple, and the technology was sort of a bonus, because they haven't like been quick to rush in on Beats Music and make changes.
I actually, the more that I've thought about it, think that in a couple of years' time, we'll look back and see that it was about the hardware stuff. It was about selling Apple products to young people again. Making it cool, making it the white headphones,
Right, because people like me are dying off, and they need a new group of consumers.
Yep, and I think that this coming year we're going to see some some cool Beats Bluetooth headphones that go with the Apple Watch. I think that's going to be something we're going to see. And they're going to be like Apple Beats, like Beats by Apple. That's going to be like the first Beats by Apple product. We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see about that. But I think that there's going to be something. There's going to be a physical product that the Beats team releases. And in a few years' time, Beats will just be a division of Apple that we know that make music-related stuff. It's where their music is going to go. Like, the Apple's love for music, that's all just going to be tied up in Beats.
Yeah, because, you look at the iTunes model of, hey, I want this album, I'm going to go pay $12 for that album. It's going to download on my computer, then I sync it to my iPod. Like, that is broken on numerous levels, from the device, now being instead of an iPod that is dependent on a FireWire or USB connection, it's a smartphone that's in our pockets at all times of the day and night with the always-on internet connection. Mm-hmm. People aren't buying music anymore; they're streaming, and Apple's model worked really well for a decade. But if they want to continue to be the leader of the pack when it comes to digital music and sort of like music on the go, they had to move into streaming, and Beats definitely offered a lot of good things at a good price. And so it's it's weird because we don't, like, Apple makes acquisitions, we just don't always see them. I think the second you got a couple famous ones. You have this, you have Next. I think for those of us who follow Apple a little more closely, the PA semiconductor guys who are now building the chips in the Apple devices, like those are big. Those are kind of like the big three. Like, I can't even name a fourth without sitting here and actually thinking about it. But yeah, I really think I agree with you, Myke. I think 2015 we're going to start to see some movement here, especially around the watch. Beats is a fashion brand. Apple's leveraging the watch as a fashion accessory. I think there's a lot of potential there for some interesting things.
Indeed. What else do we have?
App.net died.
Yeah, it was sad. It's sad.
Yeah.
Especially
it's
now.
Not good. That's the last blog post.
Oh.
They haven't posted since then. So, May 6, 2014, App.net, they, basically laid off their staff, except just some people to keep it actually running. They're going to move to contractors. They open sourced a bunch of their code.
There was this thing. There was a thing that could tell you how many active users there were. If anyone in the chat room can find that out for me, I'd really love to know. Or maybe someone send it in as follow up. Like, what is the current active user base of App.net? Because I just wonder how far away are they before they just shut down completely.
And I think they could do it at this point and not make any noise about it.
Yeah, you could do it and no one would know. That's so sad. Oh.
I'm going to log in to it now. 512 was still like auto posting to it till like 3 months ago.
Yeah, I'm totally logging in as well. I'm gonna post.
Yeah, we're gonna bring their servers down.
There are actually people still posting. It looks like it's automatic.
Mostly Thomas Brand.
I'm posting to app.net. We're reviving the service. There's a red light going off somewhere.
I'm also app.netting.
Because we're app.netting.
Oh, look at that old avatar.
Yeah, mine. I was surprised by mine too.
All right, I'm going to see what my profile says. Volcano executive, blogger, podcaster.
Internet broadcaster and producer. You can find my shows on 5x5. So there we go.
Hashtag TBT.
There you go.
So June, for those of us in the Apple camp, June is the big month of the year with WWDC. There's a lot to cover here. iOS 8, Yosemite, Rene Ritchie called it a love letter to developers.
It was then, wasn't it?
It was then, and now it's like a big middle finger. That's harsh. Now it's like a cold shoulder. Now Apple went to bed before you came home, and
wow, this is you're really on the metaphors today.
I'm deep in it today. So, you and I were both there, and I've been to a couple of these things now, and there was definitely a level of excitement after the keynote, and really, what was amazing to me in hindsight was that excitement didn't lessen throughout the week. Some of these events you go out to, and it's like, hey, keynote stuff, and the week goes on, and people are in sessions, and they're NDA'd, but when you're there, people talk, and it's like, yeah, they're doing this stuff. Like this year, like as the week went on, the excitement just kept the same pace. The people were excited about what they were seeing behind closed doors. I remember flying back, watching videos on the plane, and just like being excited about where Apple was headed. And I think that the current, like, whatever is happening in the App Store business, like, I hope that's a speed bump to this world that Apple promised of devices that know each other and can interact with each other seamlessly, and with things like Swift lowering the barrier to entry to development for iOS and OS X. There's a bunch of really good stuff, and Yosemite's, while weird in places, like a really good version of OS X, and iOS 8 a little buggy in places, but a really good release of iOS. And I still have that excitement that I had in WWDC, but it's sort of like, it's worn off a little bit. It's been beat up a little bit by, the subsequent months of news and App Store rejections.
Yeah, definitely. I think Swift was maybe the biggest surprise out of everything. The fact
I think so, because it came. Everything else had sort of been rumored,
or was expected, or was like a little surprise. But this was a big surprise that nobody knew anything about.
Yeah, and part of this is that it was a very small team. But and sort of like Tim Cook's Apple, they announced Swift, and then there's like a book on the iBook store. Like that night, like we were sitting in the hotel bar and people have their iPads out, like flipping through this ebook about Swift. Like what is happening? Like a very different sort of approach. And clearly, we're in Tim Cook's Apple. We're post Katie Cotton a little bit, and at this point, you're starting to see those changes in the way Apple relates to the press and to developers. And I think they're still trying to land on their feet from some of those changes. But I think that WWDC 2014 will go down as an important one.
Definitely.
Yep. Now we have the sad part of June. The very sad.
Well,
I played with one. Did I tell you this? I spent some time with one. Thomas Brand has one. He was in town.
Yeah.
The Amazon Fire Phone is really bad.
Yeah.
Really.
It's just terrible. Like, we did the upgrades yesterday, award show on upgrade, and the Amazon Fire Phone was like my biggest disappointment of the year. I just think it's so ridiculous.
Wow.
Like, just because why are they doing it? Like, what are they trying to achieve? Like, there's no point in them doing it, and if they're going to do it, they need to have a great phone, and they have just by all means, like a terrible phone, to the point where, like, Amazon have even kind of said, yeah, it didn't do very well. And you can just get it for nothing now, and on a contract. They hyped it up so much, and then it's just like a disappointment and a waste of time and money.
Yeah, I want to do an Amazon, if probably not an episode, but definitely a section on Amazon pretty soon. But I think Amazon has this really like core problem of that Amazon has some really great things about it. Like their store is great, their services, so S3, AWS, like that's some really good technology going on. But then you get into their consumer products, and like I like the Kindle Voyage, not everybody did. But like their tablets and now the phone, like they forked Android. Their fork isn't very good. You're stuck in the Amazon App Store, which is pretty miserable. And it's just like I don't understand why Amazon is doing that. If Amazon's goal, the Fire Phone has this feature like you point it at a Coke can and you can order like Coke from the Amazon store. Like if their goal was to like extend their e-commerce like platform into the real world, like put that app on every device you can find, like build that app for like Blackberries, like put it everywhere. Exactly. And don't like lock it away on like your weird little phone with your weird little fork of Android with like 4 cameras, 3D perspective, and menus flying around. Like they say their goals are don't make sense.
One of your main selling points for your phone shouldn't be to help you buy things on our web service. Like it doesn't even make sense, but it's been in the ads. Like, look how cool Flow is. You can buy stuff. It's like that's not a benefit Like it's weird. It's really, really weird. I think that Flow is an app on the iPhone.
I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, okay, make it. That's fine, but don't make a phone based around it. It doesn't make any sense. Amazon don't need a phone. Like they just don't need a phone. It doesn't make any sense.
I think it's hurting their like consumer stuff, like their consumer technology, whatever branding they have there. Like it's going to take a lot for the public to take the next Amazon phone or 4 Amazon phones from now seriously, because like they really got off on the wrong foot.
Mm-hmm.
Whew, July. We're up to July now, Michael. It's hot now. It's hot outside. Yep. It's July.
Yeah.
It's America's birthday. So
happy birthday, America.
Happy birthday, Obama. Apple and IBM, their global partnership to transform enterprise mobility was announced on July 15th.
Big surprise news again. Would never have expected this. I don't think if you would have given me enough guesses, I could have guessed this would happen.
I mean, it's weird. And if they have some apps out, I think that's later in the year or pretty recently. But Apple looking at the enterprise, where Apple historically has not been strong, even on the Mac, and saying, "Hey, we want to go there. How do we get there?" Well, IBM owns the space, and really like IBM does stuff in the enterprise like we don't see. Like a lot of like if you're a big company and you need like a cloud service to track your widget, like IBM builds that for you. It's not like they sell. They sold their hardware to Lenovo. They don't make chips anymore really for Apple, but it's very like enterprise behind the curtain type stuff. And it's a trusted brand to enterprises, and Apple is riding it on their coattails. They're building apps together. They're selling iOS devices. And I think it's like new Apple under Tim Cook, like seeing its weaknesses and partnering with people to counter those weaknesses.
Jobs never would have done it.
I don't think he would.
He never would have done it. Just because IBM was the enemy once.
Yeah.
August. I think this was a tech story to a point, but I think it's an interesting one. I think it leaves a chilling effect, which was the hacks or social engineering hacks on celebrities that led to a bunch of compromising photos and information being leaked out. The reason that I thought this was interesting to include was where it ended up seeming to be Apple's poor security from a security questions perspective, and some of the stuff around that, and some of Christina Warren's work on this was incredible. I just thought that it was interesting that basically the news reported this as the iCloud hack, and it kind of stuck that way.
It did, and I think because on the surface that's what it is. These photos were in iCloud or PhotoStream or something. I mean, we're the photo management show, and I barely understand how it works. And then we're out in the public. But like in reality, and we'll link to Christina's piece where like she went through the steps, and like this was not exactly like Matt Honen's deal, but this was like social engineering and like a lot of things in play. Like, can Apple address some security stuff? Like a lot of this was around if I remember correctly, their security questions, and like you could get your way around them. That was also part of Matt Honen's deal. But I think overall, like the story like went away. Like I don't like people today aren't like still turning off iCloud photo stream because their selfies are going to end up on Reddit. Like I think it was a thing, and I think while it was portrayed as iCloud was hacked, I do think that the real story and sort of like the whole story did get out a little bit, because I don't think iCloud took that big of a hit reputation-wise.
Yeah, I think that whether iCloud does or not, I think it does have an effect for the cloud as a thing, and the way that people react to that. And I think that it could be interesting that we may not see celebrities use this stuff in the same way, which may lead to less endorsements. I don't know, but it was a big story that had a tech component, like to the point where it kind of still keeps popping up in different news outlets every now and then. I thought it would be worth at least mentioning.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But the biggest news in August was Relay FM.
Oh yeah,
yeah, we did that in August. August 18th, if my memory serves me well enough. And I just wanted to mention it because it was the biggest news of my year.
Me too.
You had a son. Come on, buddy.
It was my biggest professional news.
There you go. Congratulations.
Yeah, and I think we've talked a little bit about it. I don't know if this is the right channel to do that, but it really started over the summer, but it was very quick. I mean, by the time we sat down and started working and we were launched, was like super fast.
We didn't even have a website in WWDC. Like
we did. No, it wasn't even. It was still very much just an idea, and the work didn't start until after WWDC. So, but yeah, it's here, and we're really excited about what we're doing in 2015. We're also excited that Amazon bought Twitch. So, Myke, I'm not a gamer. Can you explain Twitch? Like, I don't. Okay. Look at this URL on Amazon's press release. It's phx.corporate-ir.net.
I don't know what the IR could mean.
I think it's infrared.
Corporate infrared. That's how we're getting this
So,
URL.
Explain Twitch to me, because I don't. I know what it is, but why is it special? Why should I care?
So, you wouldn't.
If I were a gamer, why should I care?
Right, so basically Twitch is a way for people to live stream their video games. That's in essence what it is. They do a lot of other video game related content, so like award ceremonies and stuff, and E3, like the presentations, they get streamed on Twitch. It's basically a video community for gamers, and like it's being baked into consoles now, so natively you can start streaming to Twitch from the PS4 and the Xbox One. And it's basically a way that people show the game that they're playing to people that want to watch. And it's kind of like, there's this big esports thing, that's really kind of seeing a growth now. And I think a lot of the Twitch stuff helps with that. We had Twitch Plays Pokemon, which was the best thing of the year, which was just this insane thing that happened. It's difficult to explain, but basically it's because the way that I can try and explain it, it doesn't make any sense. It's just a way that people watch other people play video games.
Okay.
Like, Polygon wrote, they did a really, really, really great piece about Twitch, which I will put in the show notes. You need to read it because it's better than I could ever explain it. It's like a full. This was all before the purchase, and it kind of explains how Twitch was born by accident out of Justin TV. Do you remember Justin TV?
I do.
Yep, they shut that down slightly before the purchase by Amazon. It was a big deal. It's a big deal to the video game community, and I wish Federico was here so I could have someone help me explain it. But
is it in trouble with Amazon? Like, what's the feeling that Amazon owns it?
Nothing's happened.
So it's like all these other purchases we've talked about.
It's like most of the stuff that Amazon buys, they leave it alone for a very long time.
And then they put 4 cameras on it to make it 3D.
Well, then they just call it Amazon Prime.
Yeah. I mean,
the worst thing that Amazon could do in this scenario was do that. I mean, but you look at IMDb. Do you even remember that IMDb is owned by Amazon?
I do. You
do remember that, like every time you go there?
I mean, I just know it as a fact.
Yeah, but it's like when you go to the site, it doesn't say like Amazon Prime instant movie information.
Right.
But
it could.
But they haven't done that, and I think that was one of their first acquisitions, so.
Yeah, it was, man, dude, IMDb was launched October 17th, 1990.
Yeah, it was one of the very first websites.
That's as old as you
I've
are.
Claimed that. I've claimed that as a fact. IMDb was the first website. Did you know that?
I know that is not accurate.
Of all the websites, IMDb was the first. That's what IMDb stands for.
Internet's
most
difficult brand.
There you go. IMDb, their first website.
So we also have Ballmer surfacing again in August. He bought the LA Clippers. I don't remember how many Instagrams he paid for it. Let's see.
An amount of Instagrams.
2 Instagrams. And is stepped off the board of directors. And there's a picture of him yelling in front of a Clippers sign, and I can just see him shouting like, point guards, developers. But
this joke I think making any sense to me.
Have you never seen the Steve Ballmer developer joke?
No,
or video?
I don't know what point guards are.
It's a position in basketball. That's fine. So he's off
Michael
the
Jordan.
board. I think like I look at Ballmer now and like, you know, he's ousted as a CEO. Like, who wants to stay around in that environment? But like, he just bought an NBA team because he can. And you know what? I'm not one to judge that because that's frankly pretty cool. And if you're a rich guy, you can do that. And so I think he's just hanging out, like being a dude and buying basketball teams. And who doesn't want to do that, honestly?
Me?
Yeah. If you were ever in the States during basketball season, I would take you to a game.
I used to go to basketball in London. There was a team called the London Leopards.
The London Lepers? Were they itchy?
This week's episode of Connected is also brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website, portfolio, or online store. For a free trial and 10% off, visit Squarespace and enter the offer code WORLD at checkout. Squarespace. Start here, go anywhere. When it comes to finding a place for yourself on the internet, Squarespace is the place that you should go. It's the place you should start. They put all of the power that you need into your own hands and take away the pain points like worrying about hosting, scaling, or what to do if you get stuck with something. Squarespace have fantastic templates. I'm going to ask Stephen Hackett some questions in a moment. They have 15 new templates that they've added with their fantastic new Squarespace 7 platform. Squarespace have taken everything that they've learned over the years of powering millions of sites on the web to make their platform even better with Squarespace 7. One of these new things is something that they're calling the cover page. This allows you to create a really great looking single page website with all of the power of a full Squarespace site. They're really cool for personal websites or as a full page intro to your site. You know, maybe you've got something special that you want to promote. And as we head into the new year, why not make this a new little resolution for yourself to go and check out Squarespace's new cover page? You may find a really good use for it for your own website. Mr. Stephen Hackett, can you tell me about some of the things that you've done with Squarespace recently and why you love it?
Yeah, I did 2 things recently. One, I launched or relaunched StephenHackett.com. I think if you can own your name as a domain, I think you should. It's a good way for people to find you. And it's just a picture of my face with much more hair on it than there is currently, and a little bit about me and some links to things I do. Just I think it's important if people stumble across it, they know where to find you. But 512 Pixels, my blog runs on Squarespace, and just did a little bit of touch up on the design just this week, and it's great. They have a lot of drag and drop stuff. You can put blocks in, you can hover over something and change the fonts, but then you can drop in and do custom CSS. You can do your own JavaScript, and that's all without the developer tools. Like, I'm just on their standard account, and you have a lot more power. Squarespace is super easy, but that doesn't mean that it's not incredibly powerful. And that balance, I think they strike really well of, if you don't ever want to see that stuff, you don't have to, but if you want to, it's over here, and it works the way you expect it to. I think that's great.
Squarespace have 24/7 support with live chat and email. They have teams located in New York, Dublin, and Ireland who are there to help you maybe if you drop something in the wrong place like I probably would. If I was in the CSS, then I'm sure that the support teams could help me out to unbreak what I break. If you sign up for a year, you'll also get a free domain allowing you to choose exactly what you want your website to be called, and Squarespace plans start at just $8 a month. You can start a trial with no credit card required right now and start building a website today by going to squarespace.com. When you decide to sign up, make sure that you use the offer code WORLD at checkout. It's going to get you 10% off your first purchase and show your support for Connected. Thank you so much to Squarespace for their support of this show and all of Relay FM. Squarespace, start here, go anywhere.
So now September.
We're in Q4 now, guys. Q4. We're on
the leaves are starting to change a little bit.
They are.
Which is nice.
Oh, look at those leaves changing.
It's nice.
Wow. Hey, leaves, why are you changing?
Big news in our corner of the world: the Apple keynote, iPhone 6, Apple Watch, Apple Pay. Big event. We spoke about it at length, but I think the thing that sticks with me now, a couple months later, having not rewatched it or anything, is that the phone sort of played second seat to the watch, and it really was the watch event. And they're like, "Oh, we have iPhones, and we're gonna get the." I mean, they were done with the phones in 18 minutes or something. And clearly, the further we get away from it, the more I think about next year. Apple is all of Apple is behind this effort for the watch, for better or for worse. And I think that's going to be the story of next year coming out of Cupertino, is all about the watch.
When do you think we're going to hear about the watch next?
I think we're going to see it sooner than most people think. I'll leave it at that.
Oh. See, you probably don't know anything, but it makes it sound like you do.
I know exactly what you know. So there's that. You put Bengate in here. What do you think why? I mean, do you think that
was a big story?
Was it?
Yeah, it was a big story. Bendy
iPhones. Still a big story?
Because people still ask me if my iPhone bends. I still get asked that question every time people see it. Oh, does it bend? No. I'll bend your face. No, I don't say that. It's annoying. It's annoying.
Is it bent?
Yes.
Mine is a little bent. So mine's in the Apple leather case, but if I take it out and I put it face down like a glass table, something I know is perfectly flat, the corner that the camera's on and then the diagonal corner, I can push them up and down and it rocks a little bit, is
what happens if you put it face down? Well, so if it's face down.
Yes.
So your phone is bent.
Yeah.
I don't have a bent phone.
Oh, I thought you said you did.
No.
Yeah, mine is definitely bent a little bit, and I know exactly when it happened, and I know exactly what caused it, and that's just sad for me.
What happened?
And it bothers me.
What caused it?
It's embarrassing. I did not sit on it.
What did you do?
I keep it in my car. The handbrake is in a leather boot, I think is what it's called, and I put it next to the e-brake. It's a leather cover that goes down. It's like a little pocket, and so I dropped my phone in there. The USB cable runs there really nicely, and so I put it there. And then I got out of my car one day and I pulled the emergency brake with my phone still in there, and the phone kind of got wedged between the emergency brake and the side of the little container it lives in, and it bent.
You don't deserve to own an iPhone anymore.
Stop! It's really embarrassing.
You need to have your phone taken away. You clamped it in with the emergency brake. What's wrong with you?
So I have it in a case, and the case basically is enough that I don't notice. So,
but now everybody knows.
Yeah.
The next one is one of the biggest stories, I think, and one of the most underestimated stories of this year, which is Microsoft buying Mojang, who own and created Minecraft for $2.5 billion. Huge news, so much so that Notch could outbid Jay-Z and Beyonce for a mega mansion. Did you see that, in Beverly Hills? Did you see that?
Yeah, he bought a huge house with a candy factory in the basement.
Yeah, but the huge. I think the biggest part of it is he outbid Beyonce and Jay-Z.
Well, Jay-Z's last album wasn't very good. Maybe they're struggling.
Maybe they are. I'm sure that they are. And then, did you see the tweet where he just tweeted about it?
Yeah.
And it was just him just with his feet up, which is just the best.
Yeah, that's the picture I'm thinking of. It looks like there's a wall of jelly bean containers.
Yeah, and I read some other tweets by him later. It's he doesn't even like jelly beans, but he felt like it was the best way to show his crazy house.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you live in a house that has a candy wing, that you're doing pretty well.
$70 million.
Yeah, that's crazy pants. So Microsoft owns Minecraft. So I am sort of every time I open my mouth on this show, I sound old.
Yep.
Can I just preface this?
Yep.
So my son got some Minecraft stuff for Christmas, and he hasn't played Minecraft. It was from a extended family member. So now it's like, now Minecraft is in my home. Like, he's not playing it, but like he's aware of it now. And he's 6, which I think is a little young. But like, I know it's coming, and like I'm actually pretty excited about it. He's big into so many Legos in my house right now from Christmas. Like, he likes the building and like thinking that way. And again, like my question with Amazon, like, is this okay? Like, is Minecraft in good hands in Redmond?
Unclear. I mean, probably.
That's like a robot answer.
Yeah. Well, now it's on Windows Phone.
Situation unknown. It's still, I think, the top paid app or top grossing app in the iOS App Store. It's been that way for like a year.
Yeah. So it's now on Windows Phone, which is hilarious. Like, it just arrived relatively quickly.
Top paid app. It's got 4.5 stars with 10,000 reviews.
My original concern, which remains as a concern for me, again, even no matter what Mojang and Microsoft say, Microsoft have the ability now to pull the plug on Minecraft on any other platform except for PC and Xbox. And the fact that they've said they're not going to do that means that I also don't understand why Microsoft did this. Because the biggest video game on the planet, arguably, or maybe the fastest growing, I don't know, it's probably not the biggest, but it's probably the most important video game at the moment, like, and has been for some time and will be again for even further. It is the Mario of the current kids generation, right? It's gonna spawn a whole different, like, I think that Minecraft is incredibly important. I would actually recommend listening to, there's an episode of Virtual, I think it was last week's episode, where Federico plays for the first time. It's hilarious just to listen just to how emotionally invested and upset he gets when playing the game. But then I also go on this big rant about how important I think Minecraft is, so I don't want to just rehash it all, because I actually think that you should listen to that. It's like the first part of the episode too, so you don't have to listen to all of it if you're not interested in video games. So it's episode 19. But what I find so crazy about this is they paid $2.5 billion for it, where I cannot see how WhatsApp is worth $19 billion, that much more important than Minecraft. Like, I don't get it. Minecraft is one of the most important things on the planet right now, because it is, and it's still got a long life ahead of it, because kids are obsessed with this game. Like, right. Obsessed with this game. Mm-hmm. And like, I was sort of digging around when we were talking about the amount of users. You said 400 million users, right, for Minecraft? For WhatsApp?
Yeah, 450, I think.
So Minecraft in February passes 100 million registered users. This is for a video game.
Yeah.
It's 100 million registered users of a video game. Like,
it's all the people.
And people get obsessed. Right? I just think that I think the importance of this acquisition is underplayed, and I think that it was way underpriced, and I will never understand how it came to be this amount. Like, Microsoft bought a cultural phenomenon for $2.5 billion. Crazy.
It's weird when you say it like that, too.
There you go. So, October, we had another Apple event, which was kind of, not really that important in the grand scheme of things. What was announced? Like,
compared to the watch, sure. But I mean, iPad Air 2, like, that's fine. The iPad Mini is sad. I think the Retina iMac is a big deal, but I will admit to being somewhat biased in this regard. But I think the Retina iMac is a big deal, and but I think the big story of October is Tim Cook. His essay in Business Week. I reread it for today's episode, and like, still get chills reading it. It's so powerful, and so important.
So incredible.
Yeah,
I think it's the most important thing that Apple have done this year. Without a shadow of a doubt. There are some just choice words in here which are so powerful. Like, I want to find the quote, like, that I still think about this a lot, where Steve says, Steve, where Tim says, "So let me be clear, I'm proud to be gay, and I consider being gay among the greatest gifts God has given me." Like, I love that line so much. I think that is such a powerful line, because there are so many people that would disagree with that so fundamentally. And I really, really love it. I really love it. And I love Tim's, like, how courageous and gutsy this is of a thing to do. Like, the nerve that it must have taken to be able to be the most powerful CEO on the planet, and to say something like this is just so incredible, and it's so influential.
Yeah, and sort of on a zoomed out model a little bit. Apple under Steve Jobs was not influential in politics or in social issues. Steve Jobs sort of famously didn't, at least that we know of, give a lot of money to things. His wife has done some things. But with under Tim Cook, Apple has, under his direction, has been throwing its weight around a little bit. The sort of famous stockholder meeting where the guy's like, "What are you doing? Like, what's the return on investment on solar energy?" And Tim's like, "It's not about that. Like, if you think it is, like, if you want it to be about the ROI every time, like, get out of my stock." And Cook is in a very unique position with Apple to do all sorts of things. And I think the environmental record alone is great, but then you add it to this social causes,
the diversity stuff.
Yeah, it's huge, and obviously there's a lot of ground to be made up. I think the last diversity report, Tim Cook's like, this isn't where it should be yet. But the fact that he's talking about it, and the fact that Apple as a corporation, as a giant in the American stock market, is just really, really great. And I think that it embodies some of the things we love about Apple, of it being a company for creatives and for people who don't fit into the box, and sort of all that old kind of thinking about Apple as the underdog, fighting for the little guy. That, I see that in Tim Cook, and as an old school Apple fan, as well as someone who agrees with his political statements, I think it's really exciting.
Totally, 100%.
Yep. We'll say AF Weiler in the chat room send us a link about the Jobs family and charity. So we'll put that in there. We want to be fair. But clearly not on the same level as Tim Cook writing in Business Week. And I think he's going to be remembered very fondly by history for his actions in October.
So what else do we have we're into November now, right?
We are into November. It is Watch Kit season. I think you can go hunting for Watch Kit. What?
I like that joke. It's funny.
Oh, you finally said something that's funny on the podcast.
Congratulations! You made your first joke.
Yeah, and 4 years together, Myke. 4 years. Net neutrality, I think, is the big story out of November. There's a link to 512 in here, where I embedded a CGP Grey video, but spoke a little bit about net neutrality is this big thing, and it's political, and it's it doesn't make much sense until you think about it on the individual level. I think that's the case for a lot of political things, but especially something like this. So what I wrote about was Relay, and if without the protection of net neutrality, Comcast could go to Libsyn, where our files are hosted, and say, you know what, Libsyn, you got to pay us. We're doubling your, access to the, if you want to cross Comcast copper, it's going to cost you twice as much as it does elsewhere. And Libsyn would be forced to either do that and charge us more, which would make me sad, or not do that and our downloads be slow for anyone on Comcast, which would make me even more sad. And so it's definitely one of those things where what happens in Washington affects people on a super micro level. And it's really scary to see it be, going away. Is kind of where it's been left.
Indeed.
Scary. And it's not just here. I mean, there's news in December about net neutrality in some European countries also not in good shape.
Yeah, we're a bit more progressive though here. There is more that's happening. There is more of this stuff in the UK. There's more competition, and there are European Union guidelines about net neutrality. So at least some of the lawmakers are embracing it.
Yeah, I think it's a must in an internet-driven economy. Then like the economy that our parents grew up in, being sort of like post-industrial, like moving into the information age. Like the electric company didn't tell you that running your refrigerator would be twice as expensive as running your stove. Like that sort of mentality just doesn't make sense in a market that is completely driven. Like most small businesses in America are internet based. Like, and to see them in trouble because of this is terrifying on multiple levels.
I think it's the more of the problem is it's the American view on the rest of the world that's the problem. I think in this, I think the biggest problem of net neutrality is America making decisions and this affects the rest of the world. And as much as I love you guys, you don't have the right to make those decisions. The internet is not an American thing. Doesn't
totally
belong
agree
to America, and you can't. And the American government or anyone in America cannot make decisions that will affect me in the United Kingdom. Like you just can't do that. And
I totally agree.
So there we go. The December news. I mean, we probably don't need to talk about it because it's happening right now.
Listen to the last 3 weeks of shows. I mean, Sony, which we really didn't talk about all that much.
It's because it's a minefield and a mess.
It is a mess, and it's a minefield.
Because I've learned the hard way. If you have opinions on this stuff, people will say that you're calling America a coward. So I don't really want to get into it. I've already just slammed down on America a moment ago. I don't need to do it again. I love you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I think Sony's in a really hard position, but I think the reason that we're going to remember this movie in 2 decades is because they decided not to show it and then sort of decided to show it after all. Like,
yeah, because it seems the movie's terrible.
Yeah,
so.
but not that, but like responding to that sort of thing by accepting some level of like command is sort of strange.
Yeah, they never should have done that. They never should have made the movie in the first place, and then they really shouldn't have. I mean, looking at it in hindsight, I think that maybe they should never have made it. I think that the threats about it should say that they shouldn't have released it. But at the end of the day, you can't allow a company, another country to censor you. You just can't do that, I guess.
Yeah. And then App Store stuff, which we talked a little bit about back in June. Like a half an hour ago. Time has moved quickly and so slowly. The App Store issues of Apple built these tools and developers are using them, and there's not a great definition of what's allowed and what's not allowed, and that's hurting developers. Like, that has hopefully been quiet, but then I was thinking about this morning, and then I realized that, well, the App Store has been closed for a week because of Christmas. Like, you haven't gotten any updates on your phone because there's no updates. So hopefully that doesn't fire back up in January. But I think we're at a point where this continues to be an issue that, like, we have to hear from Apple officially. Like developers getting emails from App Review. Like, it's a very real thing, but it's not Apple making a statement. And I think Apple has to make a unilateral decision about what's allowed and what's not, and be very clear about it. And I think that's at a point where it's got to come from somebody like Schiller, who is in charge of this stuff. And there's been a lot of chatter from like well-known iOS developers who are really unhappy. And as Android gets better, like, I think some developers are looking at it for the first time, and that's not what Apple needs. Like, Apple needs good apps to be completely, solely, only on iOS.
Do you remember a couple of years ago there there was an amount of problems. There was a groundswell of anger and upset about something developer related. I can't remember what it was. And then Apple overhauled the App Store developer guidelines and included the piece on this is a living document.
Right.
Do you remember that?
I do.
I think that's going to happen in Q1.
I think it's got to, because I don't think they can make it back to another WWDC without addressing it.
Yeah, because the way that you don't have a letter from Federighi, right, where you address that we see this as a problem, the way that you don't do that is by making a change like this. It's like we're always going to change them, and you can never try, and Apple will never allow you to draw the dots between them. But it's obvious what they were doing it for.
Yeah, to a point. I agree with you, but I think like hiding behind the comment of that it's a living document, like I get the intention of that, but the cynical viewpoint is that Apple can just hide behind that anytime they want. And it's not a living document if they're not editing the document. Like they haven't clarified any of these rules yet to any great extent. And so it's like it's a living document, but it's not. And I think they've got to deal with that. They don't want to go into a WWDC with new features. Assumingly, I think it's pretty safe to say we're going to see the watch before June. I think we're going to see like the next level of watch kit at WWDC this year. And they have to have people on board with that. And there's a lot of people who were saying, like to your point a couple weeks ago on the show, that like look at the watch and they're like, I'm not going to do that because, I don't want to go build something and invest in it and it not be approved, or worse, be rejected later. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of developers are holding their cards close right now, and that's not what Apple needs. Apple needs developers to be risky, and it's time to address it.
I think that the App Store development guidelines should be written in Google Docs so like they could be edited by multiple people at once.
That's someone would just select all and delete.
Well, living document. Do you remember when you and Federico did that? You opened up a Google Doc to the world,
to the
and
internet.
It got horrible and broken and fell apart really fast.
It got really weird before it did, though.
Yeah. So that's the year. That's 2014 in review. I've enjoyed this, actually. It's nice to look back at all of the things that actually don't matter.
Should we pick a Apple story of the year?
I already kind of did on Upgrade, but I mean, mine, and I kind of said it a moment ago. I think that Tim Cook thing, the Tim Cook article, his Business Week article, is the most important thing that Apple's done this year. But probably the watch from a product perspective. If you look at Apple as the company rather than as Tim Cook the individual, probably the watch is the biggest thing. Love it or hate it, it's what Apple's betting the next couple of years on, I think.
Agreed.
Because I think as well, you look at something like this and you look at where the iPhones are and where the iPads are. Innovation is slowing down and it's going to continue to slow down. And Apple, I think that Apple will be relying on the watch to be where their innovation goes because it's a new product. And it will take maybe some of the sting away from the fact that there isn't a lot going on in the phones or the iPads.
I think that's a really good point, that they can sort of rechannel things. You saw that with OS 10 and iOS, that OS 10 slowed down, like change to change, when iOS was young. And now that iOS is a little more mature, they picked the pace back up with OS 10. We get things like Yosemite. I think a lot of that is a testament to their new integrated team structure. But I think a lot of it is like, there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many people here to do these things. And something is always going to have priority. And I think you're absolutely right that the watch is going to be that for a while. And then maybe they do that and they circle back. I think it's a pretty common scenario.
I hope that they just focus it in one place anyway, because they can't. I
hope they focus on iWork. I'm just kidding.
Mm-hmm. I'll work in the cloud. Right?
All right.
So that's about it. We've got a load of show notes today, a whole host, a veritable stack of show notes, which you can find at relay.fm/connected/20. 20 weeks, Stephen. 20 weeks of Relay FM.
It's nuts.
Congratulations on the biggest, most important thing in your year this
I
year.
really feel bad about that.
Yeah.
Biggest professional thing.
There you go. Okay. Biggest professional thing. We'll be back at next week with another episode of Connected. Thank you so much to our sponsors this week, Linda, Sketch Party TV, and Squarespace. If you want to find me online, I'm at Myke, IMYKE, and I host a bunch of shows at relay.fm. And Stephen Hackett, he is at ISMH on Twitter, and he writes the fantastic 512pixels.net. And next week, we will be joined by our absent co-host, not dead, okay, just absent. It's important.
No, you're the one who.
I'm the one that is deceased, yes. You can find Federico's great work at macstories.net, and he's at Vitici on Twitter, VITICCI. We'll be back next time. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Adios.